Frankfurt, Kentucky.
May 3, 1992. A 3-year-old girl vanished from her own front porch in broad daylight.
No scream. No witness. No trace.
In less than 10 minutes, Angelica Lewis was gone, and 33 years later, no one knows how or why. Before we dive into this mystery, I need you to do 3 things right now. Hit that like button if you believe every missing child deserves justice. Drop a comment below with your theories on what happened. And subscribe to Cold Case YT with notifications on, because the only way we solve these cases is if we refuse to let them be forgotten. This is the story of a disappearance that defies logic and haunts a small Kentucky town to this day. This is Cold Case YT. Some spring afternoons burn themselves into a town's memory forever. Not because of sunshine or children's laughter, but because of the moment everything changed. Because of the moment when normal became nightmare.
Frankfurt, Kentucky.
May 3, 1992. A Sunday afternoon. The kind of day when honeysuckle hung heavy in the humid air and the temperature hovered in the mid-70s. When every window on every street stood open to catch the breeze. The kind of day that felt safe. That felt normal. That felt like every other spring Sunday in small-town America. Frankfurt wasn't the kind of place where bad things happened. Population barely cracking 10,000 souls, it was the kind of town where people still left their doors unlocked, where neighbors knew each other's names, where the biggest crimes were usually teenagers spray painting the water tower. It was the kind of place people moved to specifically because they wanted to raise their children somewhere safe. Riverview Lane sat on the eastern edge of town, a modest street of small single-family homes built mostly in the 1960s and 70s. Just working-class homes with tidy yards, chain-link fences, and basketball hoops over garage doors. The kind of street where everyone worked hard and people took pride in their homes. The Lewis family lived in a small blue house at 1721 Riverview Lane, third from the corner on the south side of the street. It was a compact ranch-style home, maybe 1,200 square feet, with white trim around the windows and a small covered front porch. A chain-link fence surrounded the backyard. The grass was freshly mowed. A small garden of tomatoes and peppers grew along the side of the house. Everything about it said normal. Everything about it said safe. Carol Lewis was 28 years old that spring, a stay-at-home mother who had put her career as a dental hygienist on hold to raise her daughter. She was organized, careful, protective. The kind of mother who read parenting books and followed every safety guideline to the letter. She didn't let Angelica play outside unsupervised. She was vigilant in the way that all good mothers are, always watching, always aware. Her husband, Michael Lewis, was 31. He worked as a mechanic at a local auto shop, pulling long hours to support his family. He was quiet, dependable, the kind of man who fixed things. He coached Little League on weekends. He mowed the lawn every Saturday morning. He was, by every account, a devoted father and a good man. And then there was Angelica. 3 years old. Blonde hair that caught the sunlight like spun gold. Blue eyes that sparkled with mischief and curiosity. A gap-toothed smile that could melt the hardest heart. She loved Sesame Street, especially Big Bird. She carried a stuffed purple elephant everywhere she went, a gift from her grandmother that she'd named Peanut. She was learning to count to 20. She could sing the alphabet song almost perfectly. She was a normal 3-year-old girl living a normal 3-year-old life.
Until she wasn't.
May 3, 1992. Sunday afternoon. Approximately 2:20 p.m. Carol Lewis was inside the house, finishing up the lunch dishes. The windows were open. She could hear birds chirping, a lawn mower running somewhere down the street, the distant sound of children playing. Angelica had been playing in the living room with her toys. Peanut the elephant, building blocks, picture books scattered across the carpet. She was in a good mood that day.
Happy. Chatty.
At approximately 2:20 p.m., Angelica asked if she could go outside to play on the front porch. Carol said yes. It was a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. But at the time, it seemed perfectly safe. The front porch was small, enclosed by a railing. It was directly outside the living room window. Carol could see it from the kitchen. Angelica had played there dozens of times before. Carol watched through the window as Angelica stepped outside, peanut tucked under one arm, a small plastic teacup in the other hand. She was wearing a pink t-shirt with a cartoon cat on the front, denim shorts with flowers embroidered on the pockets, and white sneakers with Velcro straps. She settled herself on the porch, arranging her toys carefully. Peanut was propped against the railing. The teacup was placed on the wooden floor. Carol smiled at the scene and turned back to the dishes. She finished washing, dried her hands, and started putting things away.
She glanced at the clock. 2:30 p.m.
Maybe 2:32. She walked from the kitchen into the living room to check on Angelica.
The front door was open.
The screen door was latched from the inside, exactly as Carol had left it.
But the porch was empty. Angelica was gone.
Peanut the elephant was still there, sitting upright against the porch railing exactly where Angelica had placed him. The plastic teacup was still there, tipped over on its side near the steps. But Angelica was nowhere to be seen. Carol's first thought was that Angelica had wandered into the yard. She stepped outside, calling her daughter's name.
No response.
She walked around the side of the house, checked the backyard.
Empty.
She called again, louder this time, panic creeping into her voice.
Nothing.
She ran to the front of the house, looked up and down Riverview Lane.
The street was quiet.
A neighbor 2 houses down was washing his car. A couple was walking their dog on the opposite side of the street.
No sign of Angelica.
Michael came running from the garage. Together they searched frantically. They checked with neighbors. No one had seen Angelica. No one had seen anything unusual. How could a 3-year-old girl vanish in less than 10 minutes from a residential street in broad daylight? At 2:35 p.m., Carol dialed 911. Her voice came out as a sob. "My daughter is missing. I can't find my daughter. She was on the porch and now she's gone. Please, you have to help me." Frankfurt police arrived within 8 minutes. By 3 p.m., there were 6 officers on scene. They immediately organized a systematic search of the immediate area. Officers went door to door, asking questions. "Did you see Angelica Lewis this afternoon? Did you see anything unusual?
Agnum familia vehiclas?"
No one had seen anything. The man washing his car hadn't noticed anyone. The couple walking their dog hadn't seen a child. Neighbors had been inside or in their backyards. No one had heard a scream or any sound of struggle. At 4:15 p.m., tracking dogs arrived. 2 German shepherds were given Angelica's scent from one of her shirts. The dogs immediately picked up the trail. They followed the scent across the porch, down the steps, across the small front yard, to the sidewalk at the edge of the Lewis property.
And then stopped. The scent just ended.
As if Angelica had simply vanished into thin air. The only explanation was that she'd been put into a vehicle at that spot. But if that was the case, where were the witnesses? How had someone managed to take a child into a vehicle in broad daylight without anyone seeing anything? By 5 p.m., more than 50 people were involved in the search effort. Police officers, sheriff's deputies, state troopers, and civilian volunteers. They were searching an 8-block radius. They checked with hospitals. They checked with the fire department. Everything was coming up empty. At 6:45 p.m., 2 FBI agents arrived from Louisville. They were briefed on everything that had happened. They reviewed the timeline. They examined the porch. They looked at the spot where the tracking dogs had lost the scent. They spoke with Carol and Michael Lewis, looking for any inconsistencies, any red flags.
They found none.
What they saw was 2 devastated parents in genuine shock and terror. The FBI established a command center. They brought in additional personnel and technical specialists. They put out a BOLO alert to every law enforcement agency within a 200-mile radius. Every cop in Kentucky now had Angelica's description and photo.
The community rallied.
Hundreds of volunteers joined the search efforts. Local businesses donated money for a reward fund. Churches held prayer vigils. The case dominated local news coverage for weeks. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, the leads dried up. The searches came up empty.
The tips led nowhere.
Angelica Lewis had disappeared without a trace. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this shocking story, because what investigators discovered, or rather what they didn't discover, is something that's baffled them for more than 3 decades. Over the years, investigators developed several theories about what happened to Angelica Lewis. Theory 1: Stranger abduction. Someone who had been watching the Lewis home saw an opportunity and took it. They could have pulled up in a vehicle, grabbed Angelica quickly and quietly, and driven away. But this theory has problems. Any vehicle entering or leaving should have been noticed by someone. The tracking dogs losing Angelica's scent at the sidewalk suggests she was picked up there, but no one saw a vehicle.
No one heard a car door slam. Theory 2: Acquaintance abduction.
Angelica may have been taken by someone she knew, someone she trusted enough to go with willingly. This would explain the lack of struggle. But the Lewis family had been thoroughly investigated, and no one in their circle raised suspicions. Theory 3: A highly organized predator who had carefully planned the abduction, possibly for weeks. This person would have studied the neighborhood, learned the family's routines, identified when Angelica was most vulnerable. They would have chosen a vehicle that wouldn't stand out. They would have timed their approach perfectly. This level of planning suggests a sophisticated predator, possibly someone who'd done this before. What made the case so baffling was the complete absence of evidence.
No witnesses.
No physical evidence at the scene.
No ransom demand.
The speed of the disappearance was impossible. In less than 10 minutes, someone had to have approached the house, taken Angelica without her screaming, carried or led her to a vehicle, and driven away. All without being seen by anyone. In 1997, a girl matching Angelica's age and description was found in Tennessee. DNA testing proved she wasn't Angelica. In 2001, a witness came forward claiming to have seen a man forcing a crying blonde child into a van in Frankfurt on May 3, 1992. The lead couldn't be substantiated. In 2004, Angelica's case was compared against dozens of other unsolved child abduction cases from across the country. No definitive connections were found. In 2008, Carol Lewis died. She was only 47 years old. The official cause was cancer, but those who knew her said she'd really died of a broken heart. She'd never recovered from losing Angelica. She was buried in Frankfurt Cemetery with a small headstone placed next to hers for Angelica. A memorial for a child whose body had never been found. Michael attended the funeral. It was the first time he'd seen Carol in person in more than a decade. Their marriage had ended in divorce in 1998.
The grief had become too much.
They couldn't look at each other without seeing the daughter they'd lost. After Carol's death, Michael became even more determined to find answers. He created a website dedicated to Angelica's case. He maintained social media accounts, refusing to let her be forgotten. He connected with other families of missing children and with cold case investigators. In 2015, 23 years after Angelica's disappearance, DNA technology advanced enough that investigators re-examined the evidence. The stuffed elephant peanut and the plastic teacup were submitted for analysis. The results came back negative. No unknown DNA was found. In 2022, 30 years after Angelica's disappearance, a documentary filmmaker made a film about the case. It was viewed by millions of people and generated thousands of new tips.
A few seemed promising.
One viewer remembered seeing a dark van parked on a street near Riverview Lane multiple times in the weeks before Angelica's disappearance. This corroborated an earlier tip from 1992. But the van and its driver were never identified. Now, in January 2026, 33 years and 8 months after Angelica Lewis disappeared, the case remains unsolved. Michael Lewis is still alive, now 80 years old, still living in Frankfurt, still maintaining Angelica's website, still refusing to give up. His health is failing, but his determination hasn't wavered. He knows he's running out of time. He knows he'll most likely die without ever knowing what happened to his daughter. But he can't stop searching. Because somewhere out there, someone knows what happened on May 3, 1992. If Angelica Lewis is still alive, she would be 36 years old today. She would have no memory of her parents, no memory of her life before that Sunday afternoon. She might be living under a different name, might have been told a false story about her origins. Or maybe she's not alive. Maybe she died within hours or days of being taken. Maybe her remains are buried somewhere that's never been searched. The not knowing is the cruelest part. This case represents everything that's terrifying about child abductions. It happened in broad daylight in what should have been a safe environment. It happened to a child who was being supervised by a vigilant parent. It happened without warning, without witnesses, without any red flags. But it also represents the endurance of love. Michael Lewis has spent more than 3 decades searching for his daughter, refusing to give up even when logic says there's no hope left. Someone knows what happened to Angelica Lewis. Someone has carried this secret for 33 years. Maybe that someone is watching this right now, feeling the weight of age, feeling mortality approaching, feeling the burden of guilt.
If that's you, please come forward.
Tell authorities where Angelica is. Let her family finally have closure. Or maybe you're not the person who took Angelica, but you know something. Maybe you saw something that day and didn't report it. Maybe you heard someone say something over the years.
Please come forward.
It's never too late. Hit that like button right now to help this video reach more people. Leave a comment with any thoughts, theories, or information you might have. And subscribe to Cold Case YT because we will never stop telling these stories. We will never let these victims be forgotten. Michael Lewis is 80 years old. His time is running out. He deserves to know what happened to his daughter. Angelica Lewis deserves justice.
She deserves to be found.
The FBI tip line for information about Angelica Lewis remains open. The number is 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can also submit tips online at fbi.gov. The Frankfurt Police Department also accepts tips. If you have any information, no matter how insignificant you think it might be, please make that call. You could be the person who finally solves this case. Cold Case YT exists to make sure that victims like Angelica Lewis are never forgotten. Every video we make is an opportunity to generate new leads, to jog memories, to convince someone to finally speak up. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring enough about Angelica's story to make it to the end. Together, we can keep these cases alive. Together, we can find answers. This is Cold Case YT, and we'll never stop searching for the truth. Angelica, wherever you are not forgotten. You never will be. And someday, somehow, we will find the truth. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay safe, and never stop asking questions.